Welcome back to the Smash Cut podcast. I'm Matt Grayson, Blake Hammer. Let's hear the three-sentence summary.
Oh yeah, we got a banger today, Matt. So in this one, Mark Wahlberg is Charlie Croker, a man leading a heist crew, and you son of a bitch, a 30-year-old computer nerd obsessed with taking credit for the invention of Napster, a token black guy, and Jason Statham stretching his range by playing a British badass are in. Unfortunately, the squad is double crossed by Charlie's right hand man, Steve, who's jealous of Charlie's ability to form original thoughts and kills Charlie's elderly mentor, John, before running off with the gold. Charlie recruits John's rocket of a daughter, Stella, to join Charlie's crew as they plot a revenge caper on Steve by using Mini Coopers, seducing cable employees, and harnessing the power of friendship. This is the Italian Job.
All right, so I'm a little confused. What was the "you son of a bitch" part? Was it the "you son of a bitch"? I'm in.
Yeah, the episode of Rick and Morty
Yeah, that's what
where
I was
they
thinking.
parody heist films, I took some inspiration from that in my three-sentence summary.
All right.
And I have to
Well,
say, a lot of the tropes, and I do like this movie, but a lot of the tropes that they cover on in that episode are pretty much hit beat for beat in this movie.
yeah, I mean, this one is definitely kind of a by the numbers movie, and I'm sure we'll reference a lot how it was sort of a cable darling. But I've seen a lot of stuff that says that Shawshank Redemption pretty much exclusively has its reputation because of cable reruns. So, seems being a cable rerun movie isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world. Just sort of indicative of a movie that's not complete ass and has a plot that you can jump into at any point and more or less follow what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if I were to think of a cable movie, this would be in the Mount Rushmore. I think I got this. I'll put Shawshank in there. I'm gonna go Goodfellas, and then I'm gonna say, and this isn't really a movie, but more of a series. But any of the Jason Bourne movies.
That's true, though. I like those a lot as well. Well, as soon as this one goes, I feel like I feel like you immediately get sort of a sense of the movie. With one, the soundtrack of this movie is just a banger,
I agree.
which I guess isn't really that surprising considering the director is a music video director. Um, I had
Yeah,
never really heard of Gary Gray before this movie. I didn't know he was the director. I didn't know he directed Friday. He's got a very interesting filmography because as a former music video director, Friday sort of makes sense, but I don't know what the executives were smoking when they gave this guy a big budget like starlit like A-list cast action movie, but
it worked.
I think he did pretty well. I'll probably mention it later, but I think the only thing that he just is absolute dog shit at as a director in this movie is dialogue, like filming dialogue. It was pretty much just exclusively shot reverse shot over the shoulder for every single dialogue scene. I mean, there was a point where I was like, come on, Gary, like you couldn't think of one other shot to toss in here, but the action, like everything but the dialogue, I thought he did fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I will say using that shot over and over did lead me to some realizations throughout the course of the movie. Namely, that Seth Green at this age looks remarkably similar to early seasons of Dennis and Always Sunny. They could have
Really?
been brothers. Dude, there are a few shots in this movie where it was like, holy shit, like I didn't realize Dennis was in this. I was like, oh wait, that's Seth Green. I also want to shout out F. Gary Gray did such a good job with this movie that he got to direct The Fate of the Furious and Men in Black International after this. And his music video background came in handy because he also directed Straight Outta Compton. I, like you, had never heard of him before this movie, and I have to say this might be the strangest filmography of any
Yeah,
director
I
we've
have the
covered.
exact same feeling because Straight Outta Compton, I think, is the best biopic that has ever been made. I don't remember much about the direction, but I certainly don't remember it being bad. And certainly, is fitting for his talents. Whereas on the other hand, Fate of the Furious isn't exactly, knocking anybody's nips off with its quality, but it's not bad. It's clearly, you could see where his talents would also be utilized for that. Whereas Men in Black International is literally the only movie I have ever walked out of the theater for. So
Really, I actually have a funny story with that, Matt. Do you know what the only movie I've ever walked out of the theater for?
no.
Chicken Little. because I was 3 years old and I did not know there was going to be aliens appearing in the movie.
You got too scared.
I got too frightened and I started crying, and my mom had to leave the theater with me.
Damn, dude, not much has changed since then. You still handle horror movies like a 3-year-old. Your definitions just changed.
Well, I will say I have not walked out of the theater since then. And at this point, another part of me is taken over, and my thought is, if I pay for the ticket of the movie, I am not I'm not leaving early, because then I won't get my money's worth.
You couldn't have paid me to finish Men in Black International.
Wow.
I would have paid for a second ticket just to leave if you had to do that. I got like an hour in because I really wanted to give it a shot because I love Men in Black, and an hour in it was just consistently dog shit, and I was like, all right, well, no one was surprised that Tessa Thompson wasn't a good actor, but you gotta, it's Men in Black. Like, if the plot and everything is still bad and dumb, I'm just like, I can't do it.
Well, to get into the actual movie we're talking about today, we open with the crew in Italy, getting ready to plot a heist in Venice specifically.
Well, they've already
And
plotted it. They're getting ready to execute, dude.
well, yeah, you see the plotting and the opening title cards, or what their plotting was, and they're starting to get
Mm-hmm.
ready to execute. And we see Donald Sutherland, who is John in this movie, on the phone with his daughter Stella, who is Charlize Theron. And she's talking very oddly seductively on the phone, but it
Oh,
was
dude, I'm
hot.
so glad you noticed that. I was literally right about to ask you, am I tripping balls, or was Charlize Theron talking to her dad like she was trying to seduce a man over the phone?
Yeah, it was very odd.
It was very off-putting.
There's a few scenes in the movie where it's like, yeah, she's sexy, but like this doesn't really make sense for what's going on here.
Yeah, she was just like, daddy, like, what are you doing? And it was like, what? Like, did they not tell her this was her dad, like her actual dad, on the phone? Because it sounds like the director was like, yeah, you're calling up your booty call uh, in Italy.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I will say, from this movie, we can tell that F. Gary Gray has some exquisite taste in snow bunnies, because I think every single girl who appears on screen in this movie is pretty banging, and they might all be blonde white girls. Now that I'm
Yeah, I
thinking
think
about
that
it.
may be the case. And I did write down. I was like, when I was a kid, I thought John. I was like, dude, if John was my dad, my life would be so fucking sick. And now as an adult, I'm like, dude, John is a terrible father.
John is in prison for stealing things, I think, most of Stella's life. And
At least half, I believe he said. Which
when
also
he,
begs the question, like, how good of a mastermind can this dude be if he's been in jail for like 40 years?
I was going to say, when he's not in jail, the two things he's doing are repeating his fine catchphrase and his trusting people catchphrase to Stella. He
Oh
really
yeah.
loves those two lines.
Dude, they're kind of bangers. I will say, the devil inside I trust everybody. It's the devil inside them I don't trust is kind of a hard line, but the what fine stands for, which I do think is sort of loosely based on something from like AA, because I've heard it in other shows and they've mentioned that, but that has stuck with me my entire life. Like, I watched this movie as a kid and have not forgotten that since then.
See, when I say I'm fine, I'm actually fine. But when my girl says she's fine, she's freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional.
Yeah, exactly.
I also love how John in the opening scene just casually mentioned, she's like, "What about your parole officer?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm just not talking to him
Yeah,
anymore."
yeah. Dude, it's just like, I don't really feel like talking to that guy anymore. And she's like, oh, come on, don't do that. Instead of like, oh, you're going back to prison? That's your
Yeah.
plan? Great.
Dude, his PO just wasn't feeling the vibes, man. He wasn't feeling the vibes with that guy.
They didn't really mesh, they weren't feeling
Yeah,
the
dude.
chemistry, so he ghosted him.
There were a few red flags from his PO, and the chemistry between them and the tension wasn't enough, so he just had to cut things off.
Dude, it'd be kind of funny if like someone just calls their PO and they're like, yeah, our last meeting, you kind of gave me the ick when you refused to pay for the meal, so I'm not going to see you again. And they're like, what? We were in my office. I was eating pizza by myself. Yeah, exactly. Didn't even share.
Damn, dude. Dude. Yeah. If you guys are currently on parole, try this one neat trick on your PO and let us know what happens.
I did think that his dynamic in this movie, as short as it is, and it is kind of hilarious that they brought in arguably the most famous actor in the movie just to kill him off within like 10 minutes. But I thought that his dynamic of, being the previous mastermind guy and how he's like handing off the reins to Charlie and he's just there to, participate in one last job. I thought that was an interesting dynamic. Like, I don't think I've seen that in anything else.
Yeah, I will say, I think Donald Sutherland was in this movie for maybe 20 minutes, which is being generous. And I will say, the one thing that the filmmakers did a really good job of is they kind of set up their entire relationship dynamic. It's kind of like a mentor mentee. John almost looks at him like he's his son really well in like three or four scenes. So,
Yeah, I was
shout out.
actually pretty impressive because they sort of get everything they need within that opening meeting. Like you could tell like Charlie's the young like hotshot new guy and John's the wise old mentor, and you could tell that Charlize Theron has a really inappropriate relationship with her father. There's just a lot, but we also get um introductions to our other characters. So Mos Def is in this movie
Oh,
as
yeah.
Left Ear, who remains since I was a kid my favorite character. Although when I was a kid I wanted to be Charlie, but also Mos Def because he blew stuff up. But like other characters are arguably have better lines and scenes, but Mos Def basically just playing himself, but as a bomb expert, I thought was sick. I also had never like listened to his music really when I was a kid, except for maybe one song that I would hear from my dad. So in my mind, like this is the thing I knew Mos Def from.
Yeah, I might be outing myself as not a real hip hop head, but the only thing I know most Def from outside of this movie is that song Two Words he did with Kanye. I don't really listen to like
Really?
90s hip hop like that, which I associate him with. And so the only thing I know him for musically is his association with Kanye early in his
Damn.
career.
Well, the album Black on Both Sides is great and has Miss Fat Booty in it, which I'm sure you would recognize if I played it. And there's another one that's not on Spotify anymore because of like rights issues or something that has a
Ah,
song called Quiet Dog that's like probably one of my all-time favorite rap songs. But yeah, it was kind of weird watching this as someone who, I'm a big fan of Logic, and Mos Def is one of like his biggest influences. So, and I've also listened to a good amount of Mos Def like growing up after I'd seen this movie. So now returning to the movie, it was kind of like weird because it like in my mind it was just like, oh, this is Mos Def. Like,
yeah, it's funny. The actor I actually was most hyped for in this movie was also kind of a tertiary member of the crew, but it was Seth Green.
oh
Uh,
really?
Dude, I mean, him in Entourage is the single greatest episode of the show. When he tells E, tell Sloan Seth Green said what's up. And also, of course, who could forget him in both Robot Chicken and Family Guy? He's Chris in Family Guy.
Yeah.
If you guys have been living under a rock and didn't know that, but Seth Green's the
he,
fucking man, dude. I was
yeah,
pumped to
dude.
see him in action here, in a live action role, which is not super common for him.
Well, it's funny you mentioned him because the next thing I was going to say is when Lyle, that Seth Green character, so he's sort of like
You mean
the
Napster?
yeah, so well, if you're being correct, it's Napster, the real
Yeah,
Napster.
the real
But I'm
Napster.
not going to call him that because I'm straight. But anyway, unlike Mark Wahlberg. But he's the techno like babble kind of guy who's
Yeah.
the nerd and just says, whatever the writers thought sounded like cool technology speak, which from the little that I did understand was mostly nonsense. And he babbles off some nonsense as they're getting ready, and Mos Def goes, "We're in Italy, speak English."
Yeah, I gotta say, watching this movie, it's like F. Gary Gray when he was listening to like the techno babble line Seth Green said. He was like, "Yeah, when Ludacris's character is in Fate of the Furious, let's make that technical babble part his entire character."
Yeah.
So at this point in the movie, we've established the crew. We got a little bit on all of them. Jason Statham's just Jason Statham. That's pretty much all you need to know. He really is just the British Rock, where he just plays basically himself in every
Handsome
movie.
Rob, dude.
Handsome Rob. And the fellas are vibing on a boat on their way to the heist, and they talk to the inside man, who is Steve, played by Edward Norton, who I believe is the last member of the crew introduced. And they scope out kind of where he's going to detonate the explosives inside. They successfully detonate the explosives for the safe, and it falls into their boat, which was pretty sick. That was the first moment in the movie where it was like, all right, this is pretty dope, and there was a
Yeah.
lot of them.
I mean that, like, and it's later used. It's the reason the movie's called The Italian Job, because that sort of methodology is what they'll later have to, in a pinch, come to use for the big finale. But as a kid, I just thought that, I'd seen heist movies before, so I thought this was just, and I had never seen something like that, so I thought it was just so sick, like the idea, and also the fact that it drops and then they drive the boat away, but they don't actually drop it into the boat. It's a misdirection. They let it land in the water and then drove the boat away with a fake safe in it, so all the bad guys would chase them. Meanwhile, John, Charlie, and for some reason Left Ear are in scuba suits under the water, cracking the safe, and we get an introduction to a lot of stuff with this. First, we sort of quickly establish that Edward Norton kind of sucks ass, which will be a key tool to use later, because I don't know, he's slimy. Like, credit to Edward Norton, he did it, like, it was on purpose. But
If I had to cast one actor in Hollywood to play a sleazy guy in a movie, it would be Edward Norton. Like,
yeah,
and I'm sure he's a nice guy in real life, but something about him, he's just built for this kind of role. It's
yep,
funny. Edward Norton also apparently chose his character's wardrobe for the movie
yeah,
because he
yeah.
wanted him to be a little bit quirky. Which, that's not really my read of the character, but he definitely stood out as being a little bit different from the rest of the crew.
Yeah, he also, this movie is the reason that my entire childhood I hated Edward Norton. Like when he was the Hulk in that one Hulk movie that they want us to forget about,
Yeah.
I like, as soon as the movie started, I was like, I don't like this guy. He's up to something. Uh,
I don't think I had seen an Edward Norton movie prior to Fight Club. So every time I see him now, I'm like, this guy's sick.
it's literally the exact opposite. Yeah, well, anyway, so during this, as I was saying, a bunch of things established in this opening scene, including the practical effects of this movie and the fact that they do a lot of on-set, like, location filming.
This was in Venice.
Yeah, like, we're probably going to bring it up repeatedly throughout this movie, but the practical effects are incredible. Per usual, whenever we do glaze practical effects, I feel the need to add that it is a little sad that a movie just doing things practically earns it bonus points nowadays because of the overuse of CGI. But you got to give it credit where it's due. They did spent a lot of time on different practical effects, and it paid off. I mean, everything in this movie just looks fucking sick.
Yeah, the boat chase sequence where I believe Handsome Rob and Lyle are on the boat with a fake safe. That entire sequence was actually real boats doing a chase scene
In
and
Venice, yeah.
in Venice, and local police actually were closely monitoring the scene due to the
Yeah,
due to
I'm
the
sure,
high
dude.
speed of the boats.
If I was them, I would have been like, these Americans are 100% gonna crash a boat into a building. And I actually have a behind the scenes bit about that because Jason Statham had one day on a lake, which is a very different environment, to learn how boats work because he'd just never done that before. And then basically the next day was flown out to Italy to start filming that shit. And Seth Green is actually in the boat with him while he's doing it. So, like, his concentration face is actually just that actor probably being like, oh my God, please, Jason Statham, don't get me killed in Venice, Italy.
I would probably have the same reaction to Seth Green in that scene. I
Yeah,
cannot imagine
I'm
being the
sure.
one driving the boat. The director would be like, "Hey Blake, like you're driving 20 miles below the speed limit. You need to pick it up." And I'd be like, "Dude, safety first."
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I think this is, I could be wrong, but I think this might be the only boat chase in a movie that I actually like.
The only other movie that comes to mind with boat chases is Miami Vice, which will be covered on this pod at some point. So fucking sick. But I did love in this chase sequence how they kind of one by one kind of thwart the other cop boats. I really liked the cop boat kind of getting stuck in mud. I thought that was a nice touch. And I liked kind of their final kind of escape in the scene away from the cops. I thought that was really cool as well.
Yeah, I mean, I like how they just keep beaching them somehow.
Yeah.
And I also was like, why don't they have cop jet skis? I feel like this is literally the ideal place to have jet skis for pursuits like this. I mean, you outpace them by 20 miles an hour and maneuver better.
I think they don't want to like pollute the canal so much
Jet skis
with the
don't
jet
have
skis.
proper engines. They just suck water in and blast it out the back.
Oh,
So,
I have no fucking clue
I
then.
mean, there is an engine, but it's inside. There's no like exposed propeller and whatnot. But I also was wondering, Blake, who on the team do you think you're most similar to?
Oh, that's not even close. I hate to admit it's definitely Lyle. It's like I cannot see myself remotely in any of the other five team members, and that's taking aside the fact that I'm neither black or a woman. But their personalities, I really struggle to see myself with. Seth Green, he's not really doing stunts. He's doing some cool stuff on computers. Sometimes I do cool stuff on the computer. Uh, he really wants to be given credit for work he does, which I can relate to. And he's a big fan of the ladies, and
Yeah, I was gonna say, is it literally just the horn dog aspect?
I myself am also quite a fan of bodacious babes. So
I was thinking about it, and I was like, if you wanted to say Charlie, what would that actually mean? Like, I did think his character was fun and cool, and Mark Wahlberg was very like charismatic as the lead. But if you boil it down, like, what actual personality traits does he even have in this movie?
yeah, it's funny. The Charlie and Stella do not really show a lot of personality. I would say Charlie's main character trait is being calm under pressure,
Yeah, and I would
which
say Stella probably shows more because she's, she likes driving cars fast and she's, competitive and adventurous, whereas Charlie is just sort of smart, I guess, and slick. I mean, again, like Mark Wahlberg, I didn't have any problem with his performance. It was actually kind of funny. I only just occurred to me that he's sort of a blank slate.
yeah, I mean, I wrote this down throughout the movie, but like, there's a lot of stuff I have for Jason Statham, Seth Green, Most Def. Even Steve gets a lot. I have very little about like Charlie actually doing things. It's kind of him just setting up for other characters, and I guess you can kind of rationalize that by you kind of need a straight man with this crew. Otherwise, it's kind of just like everyone's doing wacky hijinks, and it's kind of bumbling around the plot. And I feel like the action at the end of the day was kind of the number one focus of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, say what you will. Like I was complaining about the shot, over shoulder shot, reverse shot stuff for all the dialogue, but at the end of the day, the movie does know, what you're here for, and I feel like it gives you just enough not action stuff for it to not feel like essentially just a music video. Like there's enough emotional beats in the movie to give it a little bit of depth, but not so much focus on that it sort of takes away from consistently having good either action or like setup to action. Because there's also a lot of, I don't know if they're necessarily montages because I feel like they're not that fast, but the time when that like dope soundtrack comes on and it shows them all like plotting and do it, each testing out their skills and mostly left ear trying out different bombs. I thought all those went over very well.
I
Uh,
liked those, yeah.
another thing I noticed in terms of the direction of the movie was that he really loves panning the camera up through levels of stuff. Like if when they are looking for the safe, they look up and then the camera pans up and goes through the floor to show the safe. There's another one where it's like up into the sky in Venice and then comes down and they're in LA or no, they're in the, I forget where the icy place was, but also filmed on
The Alps.
location. Oh, okay, yeah. And then, but as the movie went on, I realized I was like, I think this might be the only interesting transition that he can think of.
It works. Like
Yeah.
I don't really know what to say. So at this point in the movie, the boys make a successful escape away from the authorities in the boat. Mark Wahlberg and his crew crack open the safe, get out the gold, and the fellas are in the Alps with their own personal bottles of wine,
I love that,
celebrating,
dude.
talking about what they're gonna do with their loot. So Seth Green's gonna buy a big speaker. Most Def is going to get a house for all his shoes. And Handsome Rob delivers an absolute banger when he says, I suppose I'll get the Aston Martin Vanquish. There's not a lot a girl won't do on the passenger seat of one of those things.
Yeah, that quote. I mean, again, the writing of this movie is very like succinct, because that line, he's already had one or two, but that line on its own, you're like, oh, okay, so this is like the slick ladies man car guy, and that is pretty much his entire personality. It works.
Yeah.
I loved how they had their own bottles, and that definitely felt like an F. Gary Gray note that he put on the script. Yeah. And also, I kind of felt like as a kid, I thought all their ideas was like the coolest thing I'd ever heard. But as an adult, I'm like, this is the best they can come up with like 10 million a piece. They're like, I'm going to get a big speaker, or I'm going to get one car.
I wrote down, well, Seth Green's share into the speaker stood out to me. I think that is the worst investment possible. That speaker was probably obsolete within 5 years of buying it.
Yeah, I mean, this is sort of later in the movie, but Steve's giant television that he's a huge fan of is like a 65-inch, not flat screen. Well, it is a flat screen, but not, it's old style flat screen. Old, there's still a box on the back. And I was like, yeah, this TV was probably obsolete within 2 years, and even today, this TV you couldn't sell for more than like $50.
I was gonna say that's a $50. You could probably buy a nicer TV than that at Goodwill right now.
Yeah, if you go to a good one, you'll find one for sure. I also I thought, this is where they're celebrating and whatnot, and Edward Norton delivers a great line where they're like, "Oh, what about you, Steve? What do you think you're gonna get?" And he's like, yeah, I like what you guys said. I'll take one of each of yours. And they're all laughing, but obviously this is, foreshadowing to the fact that he's going to rob them of all the gold on their escape, and also sort of sets up the him having no imagination thing, which, they paid off. I don't really think it added very much to his character or the movie, but, I appreciate a good setup and payoff.
I would disagree with that, dude. I thought him having no imagination was his defining attribute. And I thought it was actually cool how, Charlie has a diverse gang of, unique thinkers. Mm-hmm. And they were all able to put their skills together to outsmart him, because what he does is very, and I don't know how much of this was intentional by the movie and how much was just them hitting all the beats of a heist movie, but he is very by the book kind of thinking.
Oh, yeah.
With pretty much everything he does from start to finish. John also delivers his last banger line of the movie, which also is kind of foreshadowing for one of the central themes of the movie, when he says to Charlie, remember, there are two kinds of thieves in this world: those who steal to enrich their lives and those who steal to define their lives.
He's like, don't be the latter.
Yeah, don't be the latter.
It was delivered very well, too. I mean, he's really showing those A-grade acting skills just to be killed off in the next 2 minutes. And I don't know, if this is something that stuck out to you or that you'll remember, but for a movie that prides itself on using almost zero CGI, I mean, there's even a part in the behind the scenes where F. Gary Gray is essentially apologizing for having to use CGI to add more cars to the traffic, because only the first 50 or 100 were real. And so they added more behind that. And it's like,
that's
bro,
crazy.
I think we're okay with that. Like, don't worry. You're actually flying a fucking helicopter in 3 feet of clearance. We'll forgive you for adding some cars into traffic. But when so basically Steve has his crew block them in on a dam. His plan was very good.
Before we get to that, the needle drop of the movie, and where F. Gary Gray shows why he got hired for like 1 million music videos. They're driving away, and the money needle drop hits. Like, this is fire.
Yeah, I wonder who did the cover for that. I would be curious to know. And it does return at later in the movie as well, which I thought there's a lot of really good like setup and payoff. Which again, we're giving credit for just the bare minimum, but movies today don't meet that bare minimum, so I'm gonna give them credit for it.
Or they actually do the other extreme, which I've seen in too many Netflix movies, especially comedies.
Constant needle drops?
Where, they'll set off a joke, and then they'll have the same payoff 3 or 4 times in case the audience was on their phone the first 2.
Yeah. But, okay, so the needle drop happens. They're driving away. They get blocked in by Steve's guy. Steve pulls a gun, is like, hey, fuck all of you. I'm stealing all the gold. John is like no, and then Steve mag dumps into John, killing him, pushes the van off the thing, and so and this is just a minor nitpick that annoys me in movies all the time, but like why were they getting real guns, which apparently were jamming because of how cold it is out there, which is fucking insane. But like movies where they're blasting guns in the water and the bullets just travel perfectly straight through water instead of immediately losing all their momentum and spiraling off like they would in real life. But again, minor nitpick. They hide in the thing and they release John's body, which for some reason convinces Steve that they're all dead.
I was
And
gonna say, dude, the other issue I have with that scene, one, why do they have scuba stuff in their car?
because they
Uh,
used it for the heist.
they kept it though afterward.
No, that is a good point. I don't know how they would have got pressurized, oxygenated tanks onto even a private plane. I feel like the pilot would be like, "Fuck you. Do you really need that?"
And then also, they're all, using the pressurized air things to hold their breath underwater. How did no one get hypothermia and die in this scene?
Very, very interesting question. There's a lot of them. Why wasn't Steve seeing all the bubbles that they were letting out come to the surface? Why did Steve? I liked that they had him actually like stand there and wait, not shooting, because in bad guys in movies, I feel like basically never do that.
Yeah.
But for him to do that, and then one body floats up, and he's like, "Oh, okay, so they gotta be dead." I mean, there's a guy right there. They're all clearly dead. But that's what I wanted to ask you. Is it just me, or did John's body floating up to the surface of the water look very clearly like CGI?
I didn't think it was CGI. I just think that they had like some sort of dummy thing standing in. I definitely don't think they were like, okay, Donald Sutherland, float up to the water really slow and pretend you're dead.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was a body double either. I don't think it was CGI. My best guess is that they had like some sort of dummy John corpse made up and
Well,
just
so
kind of
in order to do that, they would have had to have either the body is CGI or they CGI'd a soundstage with water and ice and everything, because like they're not diving down into sub-zero temperature waters to anchor a dummy to float up for that shot. So they're either going to have to do it on a soundstage and recreate the ice water and whatnot and then CGI it into the landscape, or film it on the actual landscape and CGI the body floating up, which is why I think it's the latter, because that does sound like the cheaper option.
Yeah, I mean, this was filmed on location, and they mentioned they couldn't walk more than 40 feet without their water freezing. So I think it was probably CGI, but like, I can't really blame
Anyway,
them
it
for
doesn't really
that.
matter. Moving on, we get Charlize Theron's intro, which I
Oh,
think
yeah.
is another. There's just so many little choices in this movie that make it so much fun on a rewatch, which includes like the first time you watch it, it sort of sets her up to look like she's following in her father's footsteps, where she's in the dark and cracking a safe, and a cop shows up, and you're like, oh shit. And then it's quickly revealed that she's sort of like a white hat hacker, but for safe cracking, like she does it to help the police and whatnot. Which I suppose it's like if there's a safe they can't open, they call her in. I thought she might have been like a penetration tester, but that doesn't really make sense because she breaks the safe to do it. So
I would love to be a penetration tester on her.
you should send her an email, dude.
Yeah, I'll let her know. But I wrote down in the scene one of the other kind of intros to her character. She's whipping the Mini Cooper, and it is the
dude.
ultimate girl car. And it's actually funny. So behind the scenes, they had Mark Wahlberg, Jason Statham, and Charlize Theron.
I have so much stuff. Did you watch the driving school documentary?
No, dude.
In the extras, you didn't?
I read all this stuff.
Oh, bro, it's so much. You have to. I would like go after this. Go and watch just that, because Charlize Theron tried to hold a straight face and not be mad while being like, "We all had to do a week of driver's school, and before I even showed up, they scheduled me for an extra week just because I'm a girl." And then she ended up being like the best one besides maybe Jason Statham, solely because Jason Statham had done all of this before.
Jason Statham, I think, even said that she was the best driver of the cast. She also.
This is why you got to watch it, dude, because he has
he doesn't say that?
He has a confessional style interview thing where he's like, Charlize, I'm not going to do the accent, but he's like, Charlize is very competent for a girl driver.
That's such a backhanded
Yeah, dude,
compliment.
it's crazy.
Well, she got so into the driving aspect that she got 2 speeding tickets during filming because she could not get used to driving normally off set. And then there was also a point in filming where Mark Wahlberg does a 360 in his car and yacked, and she was yelling like "What's up, girl?" at him afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get into more of the inside stuff from the behind the scenes features, like especially regarding cars. But like she also, that scene where they're in the warehouse with the Mini Cooper and they're doing like the test drive to see if it could drive through the house,
Yeah,
and it starts. And I do like that I'm just gonna call the director Gary. His name is so fucking annoying. Gary
FGG.
does a lot of, I think, cool stuff where he moves the camera in a way that lets you know that this was done in one take, so the actors are actually doing it. Because for the majority of driving scenes in this movie, it was actually the actors themselves driving the cars,
Yeah,
including for ones I'll talk about later. That's just fucking insane. But she does a reverse 180 in the warehouse and then goes to drive the course. And Charlize actually did, like, insisted on doing that one herself and did it for multiple takes without ever messing it up, which is crazy. And it
respect.
also, we get the setup for not only her sick whipping the coop abilities, but the never look inside thing, which will be paid off later, where she, whenever she cracks a safe for somebody, she doesn't look inside.
Yeah,
There's not really a reason given for this. I think it was just sort of a neat character quirk for them to pay off later. But I was watching this, and so obviously this is essentially a remake of a movie from, I think, the 60s, maybe.
1969.
Yeah, which had Sir Michael Caine in it, which is kind of cool. But in that movie, the Mini Coopers were utilized heavily. So in this movie, Charlize is driving the old style original Mini Cooper, but for the actual scenes with the three Mini Coopers during the heist, they used the modern version, like the newest model, and apparently had over 32 or 52 copies of each Mini Cooper available because of how many of them they had to modify and or destroy, and had a bodywork place on retainer out offset because they were literally every 3 days shipping cars to them to be repaired.
That's pretty dope, man. I also will say the Mini Coopers in this movie. I am not a Mini Cooper guy whatsoever. This makes Mini Coopers look so dope, even though I think they are
Yeah.
a girl car.
Isn't
But
it like isn't it like the best ad for a Mini Cooper you've ever seen?
they shouldn't make any Mini Cooper commercials. They should just play clips from the Italian Job.
I
I
so
bet their
my
sales would go up.
my grandma drove, and these are also all manual Mini Coopers, which is also cool. But my
Yeah,
grandma drove a Mini Cooper convertible manual. She did not have nearly. It was just she liked the car. But my dad, every time she'd come over, my dad would go out, get in the car, and go for a whip. And my uncle later bought one and then sold it. But while he had it, he's like, "Yeah, I mean, it's one of the most fun cars you could drive because you could just slam a 90-degree turn at 50 miles an hour and it just doesn't roll. Like, the handling on these cars is crazy. And I don't know, dude, I wanted a Mini Cooper so bad because of this movie, but unfortunately, although they are cheap used cars, they are completely impractical unless you are only ever moving a briefcase worth of objects at a time. And also, if any car or deer hits them, they just crumple into a ball.
yeah.
So
There are very few occupations and areas where those cars. I think probably unless you're a retired old lady, there's not many people who that car would fit for, or
no,
very European.
I was talking to my dad. I was like, yeah, after learning how dangerous they were and whatnot, I was like, yeah, this might be a good retirement car though. If you're like whipping it around in your 60s and get into a crash, it's like, it was worth it.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'll stick with my cheap foreign sedans. That's kind of my bread and butter of cars. Anyway, back to the movie. So John at this point calls Stella to try to recruit her for one last job. I've never heard that one in a heist movie
Yeah.
before. To basically get revenge on Steve for killing her father and stealing their gold. And she at first is like, no way. And then I thought this was a little ridiculous. She stares at photos of her dad for 2 minutes, including one where it looks like every old guy's Facebook picture. He's just
Yeah,
like staring at the camera.
we skipped a couple of like minor things, but I also did put down like, damn, this bitch turned around real quick, like
Yeah.
because he wasn't calling her, he was in person, and she was basically like, "Fuck you, I'm not
Yeah.
doing that," which is the sensible choice. Like that, he came to her and was like, "Hey, you know how your dad ruined his and your life by being a criminal.
Yeah.
Want to go risk your life to be a criminal?" Just to
Dude,
say, like, get one over on the guy that killed him.
you don't get it, man. It's one last job.
Okay, yeah, you son of a bitch, I'm in. That's she might be the only character in this movie that actually fits that trope. Everyone else was just immediately down. She did the you son of a bitch, I'm in.
Oh yeah.
And this is also where we learn that Charlie's last name is Croker, which is one of the worst action hero last names I've ever heard.
I mean, dude, the only way it could have been worse is if John's last name was like gets injured a lot. Or like
Yeah, yeah.
or like John Liabil a T or something like that.
We're also made aware that Charlie was able to figure out where the gold was because of a great tip from his boy Skinny Pete.
Oh yeah.
And I immediately was like, oh my God, this is Skinny Pete from Breaking Bad. This is his sequel story.
Why was that also my first thought, even though this was filmed like over 5 years before the first season of Breaking Bad?
Yeah, I was like, this is Breaking Bad is just a prequel to the Italian Job, dude.
That makes 0 sense. As Stella agrees to join Charlie's crew as he's playing pickup ball with Jason Statham, he kind of gives her the rundown on everyone, which I believe is the first time he actually says the names of Handsome Rob, Left Ear, and Lyle, but he gives
Yeah.
them the rundown. So Lyle doesn't have a nickname, though it is Napster in my canon and what we later learn in the movie. But his claim to fame is he, quote unquote, invented Napster in college, and then his roommate stole his idea while he was asleep by ejecting a disk from his computer.
A
that
floppy
had
disk,
A
dude.
floppy disk, dude, that had all of the code for Napster.
Which, I mean, just so, if you know literally anything about Napster, that makes no sense whatsoever. But, you know, it was 2003. Napster was recently shut down. So Gary was like, the Utes are going to love this one, dude. And I
Yeah,
also
dude.
like that Lyle comes in just on a sweet bike, clearly picking up the babes. He hasn't really figured out the whole riding it thing yet, but he's definitely got the biker look.
Oh yeah, dude. His fake name for this job, his code name is James Hyman, which like Charlie's just taunting him, dude.
That was Handsome Rob that got the IDs, dude.
Oh yeah, Handsome Rob was just clowning.
Handsome Rob is a troll.
Oh yeah, to use the OG internet troll. Then we get introduced to Left Ear, who's called that because at 10 he blew up a cherry bomb in a toilet and lost hearing
M80s.
in his right ear. Yeah, which was a pretty dope scene.
Yeah, I was a fan.
Handsome Rob, which his intro made no sense. So he basically has most of the LAPD in a high speed chase down the highway, and he has like 100 groupies who are like, "Yeah, go
Well, I think
Handsome Rob."
I think they said it was cross country because he was trying to set the longest chase record, but he's driving it. He's like visibly driving at like 30 miles an hour with 100 cops. It's like the pit maneuver was well established by 2003. Like there's no reason that would have gone on that long. But, you know, Charlie adds in that he got over 100 letters from ladies who saw him on the news, and he says it like it's some batshit insane thing. It's like, Charlie, do some research, dude. Serial killers get so many letters from women for some reason.
Dude, I think he probably got less letters than the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez. So he was small potatoes compared to him.
You know, I knew someone that was expelled from school for blowing up an M80 in the toilet.
Wow.
Would you?
That is pretty nuts.
Would you have been up to those schemes when you were in elementary school, dude?
Definitely not, dude. with my luck, dude, I would have done that, and the only explosion would have been into my anus. So,
What if you walked? What if at like third grade you'd walked into the bathroom and some kid was like, "Oh, I'm gonna dump it. I'm gonna put an M80 down the toilet." Would you have stuck around to see the action?
I would have probably ran away, afraid that it was gonna blow up and I was gonna die. But I would have watched safely from a distance.
Yeah. Well,
Oh
you know,
yeah,
so I like with Charlie's. Speaking of kids doing crazy shit, I like Charlie's intro. I've been a thief since I had baby teeth. I thought was a
yeah,
fire line,
that was
like
pretty cool.
kind of a rhyme, and he pulls off this scheme where the bully is, you know, stealing lunch money, so they trip him, and at this point the kid could just reach and take the money out of his back pocket, but for some reason they got a third guy involved who threw a kickball at the bully, which seemingly achieved nothing.
Style
uh
points, man.
yeah, I guess. I mean, I thought that was pretty interesting. um and do you have anything else on their intros? Because I wanted to get to when they're surveilling Steve's place.
So I was gonna say, first thing we see, they arrive in Hollywood, and we immediately see, which aged so well. But and there's a billboard very soon after they ages very poorly. We have a Curb Your Enthusiasm billboard, and this is, I think, like maybe season 1 or 2 of the show when they're filming.
Yeah.
Awesome fucking show.
Oh
Great
yeah.
choice for a background billboard, which is bad because later on they're scoping out the hotel and they show a Sean John billboard in the background, which is
I don't know
Diddy's
what that
line
is.
of apparel, which aged very
Oh,
poorly to
dude, I
two
wonder.
opposite extremes.
Yeah, I wonder how involved with the big Diddy man Gary was.
I think he went to a few parties, and the reason that he's F. Gary Gray and not just his normal name is because his name is Felix Gray, which is the same as the sunglasses brand. So that would kind of be like a director being named Ray Ban,
Yeah,
and going by like R. Andy Ban or something like that.
I think he should have just changed, like, came up with the stage name, because F. Gary Gray is just, it sounds like an old writer from like the 16th century.
It sounds like F. Scott Fitzgerald. That's what
That's
I
yeah,
think.
that's what I was
The writer of The
saying.
Great Gatsby.
But
It should
anyway,
have been
they
Figaro Gray to fit with the music video theme.
Johann F. Bach.
Mozart Gray.
Dude, written and directed by Bach would kind of go hard, though. I'm not gonna lie.
it's just one word.
Yeah, dude, he's like Prince.
What if he did that but with the really anti-Semitic German composer? He was just Wagner.
That would be pretty good, dude.
That would be a bold move, dude.
Yeah, bro. You're like, all right, guys, we're going to see the newest Holocaust documentary. And it's like written and directed by Wagner. You're like, oh shit,
Yeah,
maybe
dude.
we shouldn't watch this one.
So at this point in the movie, Lyle is helping them set up a phone tap for Steve so they can do some surveillance on him. He's like, "Yeah, guys, like I'm an expert at this. I've been doing this on my ex's phone for years." He's like,
Yeah.
"Lyle, that's a crime, brother."
Yeah, that was a very like early 2000s take there, where
Yeah.
they all just sort of move past it immediately because the audience is just supposed to chuckle and move on. But it's like, now you've made this character he was like the sweet techie nerd guy before, and now he's a stalker.
Sweet is
Like,
a stretch, dude. They were setting him up to be kind of the butt of some jokes of the group.
all right, well, he seemed like a nice guy up until we find out that he's been stalking his ex for several years.
He seems like somebody who wouldn't have a restraining order against him. I'll give him that.
Yeah, well, they're surveilling the security of Steve's mansion, and they discover a number of things, including that Steve, as promised, bought one of all of their things. Which, once again, like, if your ideas for what to do with millions of dollars are so cheap that he could buy all of them and still have most of it left over, I feel like their ideas were pretty weak.
I disagree, dude. These are fiscally responsible characters. They each get one luxury item, and then they're going to invest the rest of it in the S&P 500 and watch their net worth skyrocket.
So you like John's plan, dude, to invest in gold.
Oh, yeah. That's also so stupid.
It'd be so funny. Like, I guess it is kind of just for laundering money purposes, but it'd be so funny to just buy gold bricks with gold bricks. Like
I
that
think it would
scene in
be.
It's Always Sunny where they're at the fish market and like eventually you see two guys are just passing the same fish back and forth as the trade.
I think it would be funnier to downgrade and buy a bunch of silver bricks.
You buy a bunch of bronze.
Yeah,
You gotta
buy a bunch
keep
of
you keep
copper, dude.
yeah, you just keep trading them for lesser and lesser valuable metals.
There's there's just like industrial sized barrels of aluminum from like the front door to the very attic of the guy's house.
Bro, that actually would be I'm just gonna I'm gonna knock off the fact I want to look up how much aluminum you can buy with $35 million worth of gold. But first, I do want to mention the rent-a-cop security guard that Steve has is
Yeah,
Oscar Martinez from The Office.
I wrote the same note down.
Yep. So I thought that was a pretty fun bit, and one of my favorite moments in the movie where left ear, to give him a little bit like there's this movie is just filled of like fun little character quirks that don't really
Yeah.
mean anything to the story, but just sort of add like a fun flavor to the movie. And I like him being like, "Oh, he's got dogs. Like, I hate dogs. I had a bad experience." And he says it like Cleveland. He's like, "I had a bad experience." And then Mark Wahlberg's like, "Oh, what happened?" And he's like, "I had a bad experience. I'm deaf."
Another small detail of this movie that I loved is the quick scene where Jason Statham is trying to, as the wheel guy, he's trying to scope out the distance from, their hiding spot to Steve's hotel. And he's smoking a cig and he looks at a sign that says smoking deaths this year. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, as he's stuck in gridlock traffic. And then one of my favorite performances in the entire movie, there's this
Oh,
weird guy, he's
dude.
stuck in gridlock, and this
I
weird
love
guy
this guy.
keeps practicing. It's kind of like in Seinfeld when Kramer's doing these pretzels are making me thirsty. This guy keeps going, turn in your badge and your weapon in the car.
Yeah, and he's like, crush, throw, turn in your badge and your weapon. And then Jason Statham like yells at him for being a moron, and he just starts doing it in a British accent, but like doesn't like has is actually just doesn't notice. The dude seemed really familiar too. I don't know his name or what else he's been in, but he was very familiar to me. If you want to look that up.
Oh, I have his name. So his
Um,
name is Scott Adsit.
and what else has he been in?
Not very much.
Oh, really? Because he seems so familiar to me. Like he's been in cameos a lot for sure. But I loved that guy. I really wish we had gotten an Italian Job sequel where they brought him into the crew for his acting skills,
Oh,
dude.
I am an idiot and clicked on the wrong page. Scott Adsit has actually had 154 credits. The most
I
notable
knew
ones,
him.
he's Pete Hornberger in 30 Rock.
Oh, I was literally just thinking about 30 Rock when you mentioned Curb. I was like, yeah, I got to finish that show and I got to finish 30 Rock because I actually think 30 Rock is better, but they're both fantastic comedy sitcom type shows. And he was one of the main guys in that. That's actually a crazy coincidence. That's kind of blowing my mind right now.
The other
Maybe it's a
wild one,
sign.
yeah, the other wild one with him is he's the voice of Baymax in Big Hero 6.
That I definitely wouldn't have expected. Although I don't know if Baymax says words in that movie, so I'm not really sure what exactly voicing that means. But then again, like Vin Diesel was paid millions of dollars to say 3 words for Guardians of the Galaxy, so who knows
Dude,
how these things work.
Scott Adsit walked so Vin Diesel could run.
Exactly, he was the OG. Okay, Vin Diesel wishes he was Scott Adson. And what was right? So I looked it up, and with $35 million worth of gold, you could buy 10.5 thousand metric tons of aluminum.
Well, I know what
So
we're doing with the payoff from our next heist, Matt.
I know, dude. Our first sponsorship check is going straight into aluminum caches.
Dude, every single dollar I make off this podcast, the first month I get paid is going into aluminum, dude. It's the
Hell
gold of the
yes.
future. You heard it here first.
It only appreciates.
Dude, it will only go up in value. Uh, but anyways, so after Handsome Rob finishes his scoping out, he gets back to the house, and Lyle, I love how this movie is one of many movies that does this, but Lyle being a hacker means that he's an expert on every single electronic, including traffic
Yep.
lights, and is just able
Yeah.
to perfectly hack into them.
Which is just, I mean, imagine if that was a thing that anybody or even a really talented coder or hacker would be able to do. Imagine how fucking disastrous that would be. He also, like, as a kid, I just thought that this was like a funny bit where he's like, "Oh, look, I've hacked into the like cameras. Watch this. Whoops!" and creates like a 16-car pileup in the middle of LA. As a kid, I was like, "Ah, got him." But as an adult, I'm like, "Bro, you could have just killed like 16 people."
Dude, he was playing a funny prank. It's okay. They don't have names in the movies, so their lives don't matter.
He just did it for the vine, bro.
Yeah, dude. It's like that. I think you should leave bit. Well, there's no record of them, so they kind of just don't matter.
The police said they're like nothing. Like they don't matter at all.
They're homeless. No, they just don't matter.
So after this, they've done some more setup, they realize that, they do some surveillance, which allows them to discover that he owns a television. I'm not really sure why they needed to surveil him to figure that out, but I guess they're being thorough. And then they come up with a genius plan to send the least experienced daughter of the man he murdered as the undercover agent, as a cable woman.
Well, a
into
couple
his place.
notes here. One, Steve shows his lack of imagination because he has all the money from the heist, and the only thing he wants to do is watch TV. And secondly, the reasoning, which I don't fully agree with it, but they at least cover this reasoning that Stella is sent is because he believes that everyone else is dead, which we covered already why that doesn't make a lot of sense, but at least the movie is following its own stupid logic.
I will give it credit for that. I mean, you could just say, why don't they just hire a third party for this role? But, I do appreciate that, even though it might make less sense, keeping the cast as concise or whatever as possible in terms of the people on the team. Because I will say, obviously there's a lot of comparisons to be made between this and Ocean's 11. And they did come out at a similar time, although I do think that they were written in overlapping time periods, so I don't think this was just ripping off it. And I do think it separates itself quite well. And in one of those ways is I do think that Ocean's 11, like, I could not name every member of the group in Ocean's 11 by name, let alone by their role. Whereas in this movie, I could probably name every person off the dome by their role and what at least their first name is. I don't really know any of their last names, but
I don't know if this is a hot take or not. I think Ocean's 11 is mid as hell, dude. It really does not do anything for me. Like, you have the three main characters, and it's like their whole thing is like, look at all these famous and cool people. Another thing that's going to piss off some of our audience. Not a huge fan of Julia Roberts. Doesn't really
I actually agree with that.
do much for me. She's very kind of just generic nice girl. Honestly, she was the Taylor Swift of our parents' generation. That's the best comp I get.
Yeah,
she's
in
insanely big for being bland. Like, okay,
she's kind of like the
nice.
Zendaya of their generation, like massively famous with very little acting ability.
I was gonna say massively regarded as a sexy woman while being kind of mid, but we could go with that too. Anyways, now that I've pissed off most of the audience, let's get back to the movie. So, a very bizarre scene ensues where Charlie kind of just walks into Stella's hotel room where she's just practicing cracking safes in her bra, which, again, very sexy, but doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Pretty sick move. I think it makes sense. I mean, she's got to practice, keep up her skills, and she's,
why is she not wearing a shirt when she... I mean, I'm not complaining, but... So she's like,
you never walk around your apartment shirtless?
I mean, yeah, but I'm not a girl. And also, if she was really going to do that, why wear a bra?
What? Do you think girls don't walk around with less clothing on when they're alone?
Yeah, they usually take off their bras. The bra is the uncomfortable part from what my girlfriend
tells
me.
I agree with that part, but if they're like walking around, a place with big ass windows and whatnot, they're just not walking around topless all the time. I mean, maybe some people
She would just do a t-shirt then with no bra under. That would make the most sense.
This just feels like a very strange thing to be confused by. That didn't even occur to me.
Well, it's like a sexy bra too. Like, it doesn't seem like a comfortable one.
All right. Well, either way, she's doing that.
You don't think that's weird at all?
No, it didn't even remotely occur to me to think it was odd that
I
she was
immediately thought of
looked like she
this.
was just wearing a nice bra by herself. Maybe was getting a little sweaty from concentration and wanted to take off the shirt. While we're on the subject of them uh, getting getting Charlize Theron into the building under the guise of a cable thing, we start to learn more about Seth Green's character Lyle. In that, he's definitely a major creep. He's zooming in on this lady Becky, who's one of the workers whose uniform and truck they're going to steal, and he zooms in on her name on her shirt, which is in this region, and is like, Becky, nice name. Wonder what she calls the other one. It's like, all right. He thought that line was so sick, dude.
Also, dude, another thing I don't get. How is that sexy at all? She's wearing like a Best Buy uniform. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like it's just a regular like work uniform, and he's like, oh.
He also drops, which I think he says this line a few times in the movie, but the first time I remember him saying, he goes, "I should have been on the cover of Wired magazine."
Yeah, he's very upset about the Napster. So he brings it up constantly. If I was one of them, at a certain point, I would be like, "Bro, shut the fuck up." Like,
that's basically what Handsome Rob says to him.
Yeah, and it's like best case scenario, you would have built a business that got ran into the ground by the federal government. Like, why are you jealous of this guy? You're about to be a millionaire.
Lyle should be thanking his roommate for stealing his idea. He saved him millions of dollars in legal fees.
Exactly. But we have Handsome Rob, turning on the charm to get the truck, which I thought was just, first of all, it was already hilarious that a random man just gets out of a car and walks over to her while she's at work. And from there, she's like, time to go back to my place.
No alarm bells ring there. I do love the Seth Green improvisation during the scene.
Oh, yeah.
So did F. Gary Gray. In fact, he cried from laughing so hard at this, including lines where Seth Green goes, "Would you like my virginity as well?"
If it's on the menu.
If it's on the menu, yeah.
Yeah, well, he's like, "I'm going to need your fat truck and your shirt." Oh, okay. Would you like my virginity as well? If it's on the menu. I thought like he was spot on. Very good choice to let him just riff with that one. And also, not only did it make Gary cry laughing, he actually forgot to say cut because he was so into the improv. So Seth Green was just rambling it for like several minutes before Gary was like, "Oh fuck, we gotta stop wasting film."
Half of this.
Yeah. And so just to move past this whole, intro to the cable thing, Charlize Theron gets the uniform. Part of the plan, I believe, is to have her
successful seduction.
Exactly. Get him to ask her out on a date, which is what made me think about the disappointing fact that Charlize Theron has aged atrociously. And not because she's actually aged poorly, but because her face is like 75% silicone.
What the hell?
Oh, you didn't know? You haven't seen The Odyssey?
No, not yet, dude. This is insane.
Dude, look up Charlize Theron Odyssey.
I just looked this up. This is scaring me.
Isn't it crazy?
I don't like this stuff,
Do you see the cover of Ellie or whatever?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at right now.
Shit. Dude, it's like defying expectations in The Odyssey. It's like, what expectations? The expectations that her face would still exist?
Dude, this is awful.
I know. Isn't that like an all-time bummer?
That's tough, dude. It kind of reminds me of when as a kid I was like, man, Ariana Grande is so hot, and now she is like the same weight as like the average 6-year-old girl, and it's just sad.
Yeah, it like cries constantly about nothing.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so we got Steve, he's trying to pull a fast one here and get Becky's number. Little does he know that was their plan all along, which is good for him because he has no game.
It is really pathetic. I mean, it makes Lyle honestly look like a Riz god. Some of the things he says. I just remember at one point he's just like, "Oh, monastery for punk ass creeps." And it's like, bro.
Yeah. And also Charlize Theron being like, "Oh yeah, I just don't think lugging a bunch of rocks from somewhere far away does it for me." And I was like, "Oh, sick burn." And then Steve, not to be deterred, is like, "Oh yeah, what does do it for you?" And she says TVs as if to like cut him off and get to her job,
Yeah.
and let out a little bit of the line before reeling him in. But Steve is undeterred and is like, "Oh yeah, really? I have a monster TV."
Also, I hated how Steve. Well, I loved watching, but it was very cringe to watch. Steve, as she's leaving, and she's like, "Yeah, I don't go on dates with creepy men I met 5 minutes ago." He just keeps upping the ante. He's like, "You don't even have to give me a phone number." It's like, bro, settle
Yeah,
down.
he's like, "I'll just meet you somewhere."
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Come on, just break your rule once." And it's like, bro, what are you like in real life? That lady would have been running out of that house.
Dude, I just can't get over the fact, dude. Imagine like an Optimum worker comes to like fix like a problem with your modem, and you just start hitting on them nonstop.
Yeah.
Like they are not sticking around afterward to talk to you. They are running out of that house.
Yeah, like that's not gonna go well. And so,
Although, dude,
okay, so
it would be really funny if you did that with like a 300 pound like overweight like Cuban guy coming over. You just like hit on him nonstop. He's like, "Do you usually flirt with clients?"
you're like, "You're the prettiest cable guy I've ever seen." They're like, "Oh, I bet you say that to all the cable guys."
He's like, "No hablo inglés, señor."
So, following this intense scene with Charlize's character, we get they let us know that they're gonna use the Mini Coopers because Lyle somehow hits 2 keys on his keyboard, which tells the program to tell him the exact width of a doorway in a certain part of the house. And they learn that it's 6 feet. So they're like, "Oh, the Mini Coopers, here we go, baby. Time to get some dope ass Mini Coops in this bitch." And this is where we get introduced to the boy Wrench.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Wrench comes on the scene. They're like, "Hey, we need you to essentially turn this car into an entirely different car without changing the size of the car." And then they offer him $10,000 to do so, which to me seems incredibly low.
I mean, I feel like that's a decent pay job. If they also, well, let's put it this way: if they say we're gonna cover the cost of parts and you'll make 10K on top of that, like I feel like that's a pretty good deal. I mean, today that's about 18K. So like that's almost 20K to probably do something he already is pretty familiar with doing and he doesn't have to cover any cost. I think that's a pretty good deal.
Also, his name is Wrench, so clearly this guy is doing what he loves. He's never worked a day in his life.
Oh yeah, and he also, like every other male character in this movie, tries to hit on Stella. She's not having it, and he goes, "Damn, that's cold." I was like, that was
cold.
The way he delivered that line was tight, dude.
Yeah,
put a clip of that in the episode. That was hard as hell.
All right, yeah. If I can, I'll get a clip up there of just like he's like, "Oh, like my name's Wrench. What's yours?" And she's like, "Ham and cheese," and hands him a sandwich. She's like, "Oh, that's cold. That's
Dude.
cold."
So at this point, they get the cars modified. Then Lyle figures out how to hack the traffic light system. The traffic center guys should all be fired from their jobs.
Oh, yeah.
They're beyond incompetent. And also, the fact that Lyle did this, there's probably hundreds of other people in LA then who are capable of doing this. And the system goes down. There's a big crash. And he just reboots the system on, and they're like, "Huh, probably just a normal accident." It's like, yeah, dude, a classic day in LA where 18 cars pile up in the middle of the intersection in the middle of the day, and your system power goes off.
Yeah, he switches it back to normal, and they're like, "Oh, it must just be bad drivers." It's like, what? Like 2 cars crashed, okay, and everyone piled up, which also is kind of funny because it's like, this is LA, like. There's already traffic. They're driving at like 30 miles an hour maximum.
Yeah.
And somehow the light turns green or red all of a sudden, and 16 of them in a single file line drive into the intersection. Like, what is going on here? Do you remember his explanation of how he hacked into the traffic?
Honestly, dude, whenever he started talking about computers, I just tuned out. It's because the thing is with like the science stuff in these movies, one, it's not particularly interesting to listen to, and 2, almost none of it is actually accurate to the real life science. They just make up a bunch of bullshit.
So I just thought it was hilarious because even if you don't know anything about computers, this on its face sounds retarded, which is that he explains in detail-ish the complex algorithm that the traffic system uses to change lights, which is true. Um, However, he's like, and it uses this complex algorithm. So what I did is make my own kick-ass algorithm to sneak in. And it's like, what do those two things have anything to do with each other? How the system works and then you creating a different like thing to get into it are not connected ideas.
Dude, do you not get it? If you're badass enough on the computer, you can hit any 5 keys in order and it will crash the mainframe.
Yeah, dude. I was about to say you can get into the mainframe. All you have to do is know how to make kick-ass algorithms.
So we cut to a scene where Steve meets with his Ukrainian contact Yevhen for the second time.
Yevhen.
And Yevhen. They're saying shit in such thick Russian accents, you can't understand half.
Dude, like 6 different people say Yevhen in this movie, only one of which has a Russian accent. Actually,
that was the one I was listening to.
I was wrong about that too. He's Ukrainian.
Yeah, I said Ukrainian, so joke's on you.
You said
Matt.
Russian accent. You said thick Russian accent.
Okay, well, they're neighboring. Fuck you. But anyway, Yevhen accidentally reveals to him that he knows about the Venice heist. And Steve responds like every other bad guy in every other heist movie and immediately kills him. Which was really dope.
Smart move, honestly.
Smart move, except he was in full view of the security cameras.
Well, did it show whether he took the tapes out or not? Because Yevhen had said in his intro that he never leaves the tapes in when Steve is showing up.
So maybe the tapes were out and I missed that, but
they were out because they had to go and like figure out where things came from and who was meeting with him and talk to Skinny Pete and his lady. Also, we just missed a great opportunity with that natural mix-up to say, how would we know where he's from? He's got a thick Russian accent.
Oh,
from
yeah,
Snatch.
Dude. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, the next bit, we also get to see the Mini Coopers, the fully kitted out Mini Coopers.
Oh, yeah.
I want one of those bad boys so bad, but unfortunately I would not pay any money for such a dangerous and impractical vehicle. That being said, dude, the Mini Coopers driving around the storm drain, GTA style, like that was so sick.
That was really dope. Around this time, they also get their supplier of explosives, Skinny Pete, which is a very funny scene. So he's on a golf range trying to putt. He just keeps way overshooting the putt. It's also really funny because they have a bunch of normal-sized Asian dudes. I'm not sure which country they're from.
Did you notice that for some reason this is like specifically a Korean driving range?
Okay. So a bunch of Korean dudes are like whacking golf balls. So you expect this guy, one to be skinny and one to be hitting a driver. And then the reveal that he's just a massive fat guy with a really hot Korean girlfriend just trying and failing to hit putts. I also have a little bit on the actor who plays Skinny Pete. His name is Gauti. This is his only film role, and he, according to his IMDb, is a member of the Booyah tribe. 5 brothers and a cousin who are former gangsters turned rappers.
Oh, is he Korean? Because he kind of looked Samoan. But I think I'm just saying that because he's giant.
Yeah. I mean, he made me think of like Yokozuna, who is a Samoan WWE.
The over the rainbow guy?
No, Yokozuna was a WWE wrestler who was Samoan, but they had playing a Japanese sumo wrestler. He was like,
that's a crazy choice.
He was like 500 pounds, and his finisher was the bonsai drop, which would be he would be on the middle rope because he was too fat to go to the top rope, and he would essentially just pretend to sit on his opponent. And it's like he's so heavy that just him sitting on his opponent, he is Samoan. Gauti. I just looked into
really?
this. Yeah,
nailed it.
He also has a clothing company which has his name. So
damn, the guy I was thinking of was Israel is Kamakawiwoole.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
I know what you're talking about.
Somewhere over the rainbow, dude. He's dead. Anyway,
so
yeah, I love the small girl that was with him being like, "Great job, you could do it. You're getting better." Like with every hit, and every hit is like a 3-year-old on the putt course just slamming the ball. Also, Mos Def in this scene acts like he's never seen a fat guy before, and
Okay,
is
well,
like,
he did think it was going to be Skinny Pete, and this guy is a specimen, but
okay, sure, but there's several minutes of him just like, and it's like, all right, dude, you live around L.A. right now. You've seen fat people.
he's like, no, 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 nice to meet you, man. He's so scared of him. I also love that every time something real's about to go down, Skinny Pete's just like, go relax, sweetie, to his
Oh,
girl.
dude, yeah, he's like, go relax, baby. Every single time is so
Yeah.
funny, including when like the mobsters show up with axes or something, and he's like,
Yeah.
"Baby, go relax."
So at this,
I think that the Ukrainian villain guy, who is played by someone that's very familiar to me, I don't know his name, but what I did notice is his number one goon. I'm not sure if you caught this. His number one goon that's with him is Mac's dad from It's Always Sunny,
oh, hell yes, dude.
which is kind of sick because I like to think that this is both a sequel to Breaking Bad and a prequel to It's Always Sunny, because that is how Mac's dad ended up in jail, dude.
Working
Because
with
when
the
he's introduced in the
Ukrainians.
show, yeah, so if Charlie hadn't played his cards right in here, he would have been having to shove heroin up his butt to get it into that guy at jail.
So the actor who plays the guy who was killed by Steve, Yevon, he is the producer of almost 200 episodes of Dog the Bounty Hunter. He also
That's not who I meant. The Ukrainian mob boss, not Yevon.
okay. Well, I was going to say his most recent project is called Circumcision, but Mashkov, who is played by Oleg Krupa, he is in Burn After Reading, Hidden
Oh, that movie's
Figures,
so good.
another one I haven't seen. Hidden Figures, Blue Streak, which is not that good, and Miller's Crossing. And he's also Gorbachev in the recent Reagan movie.
Interesting. Well, anyway, I was saying I think that the Ukrainian villain did feel kind of superfluous, but at the same time I do get why they needed to have him, not just because of how the plot wraps up, but also just because like Steve can't really work as the main antagonist, or at least as the sole antagonist, because for most of the movie they're plotting like doing stuff to him. So if there wasn't some outside, villainous force also working in the mix, it would sort of get, I don't know, there wouldn't really be like a sense of tension very often.
Yeah, also they build up that Steve is smart but lacks creativity, and it wouldn't be very smart of him to be working on his own with a bunch of people after him and 35 million, which he cannot legally declare. So at this
Yeah.
point, the crew goes back to Steve's house. His neighbors are having a party, which foils their scheme to run the heist. The party his neighbors are having looks absolutely big, and I would definitely go to that.
Yeah, it
Um,
seems like a good time. They had a valet, dude. That's how
yeah,
you know a
pretty
party's
fucking
legit.
sick, dude. House in the Hills, Hollywood Mansion party, hell
I also
yeah.
like how the valet was like, "Oh, are you here for the whatever family party?" And Mark Wahlberg's like, "No."
So Steve then actually ends up going on a date with Stella, where he does some terrible riz, essentially tries to bring her back to his house to fuck on the first date, which again, rookie
Yep.
maneuver.
And he
And
tries to do it like seemingly 5 minutes into the
I
date.
think it's like cutting into like they got dessert and they're wrapping
It
up.
does cut to him being like, "Oh, I didn't think you were very adventurous." And then she's like, "Oh, you don't know me or whatever." And he's like, "I wasn't making assumptions." And it's like, "What are you talking about? You literally just told her what you assumed."
I also love when she's like, "Yeah, I don't really want to go back home with you," and he's like, "What do you have, a cable company curfew?"
Yeah, it's like, bro, what are you doing? Like, is it a cable company role? It's like, or maybe she's just like a regular woman that isn't pleased with your skeeviness.
I don't know, dude. In my experience, if you strongly imply to women on the first date that they need to fuck you right then and there, they really go for that.
Yeah, they're like, oh, he must really like me.
Yeah. He's definitely invested in me for the long haul with moves
Yeah.
like this. And then Stella says, he's like, "Oh, what? You don't trust me?" Which, again, terrible riz. And then Stella goes, "I trust everyone. It's the devil inside them I can't trust." And maybe this is just a me thing. The leap that the writers make here, that because she said that expression, she's automatically John's daughter. Like, she could have just heard someone saying that expression and thought it was cool.
I will defend it on this one. First of all, I do want to say that that is a generational fumble on Stella's part, because
She
for
said one of
what
her dad's two catchphrases.
yeah, with to the guy that murdered him. And also, I will defend it though, because I do think if they had just had her say that, and then he's like, "Oh, I know who you are. Fuck you." Like that would be a little too quick. But they do go out of their way to have him be like, "Oh, it's interesting you say that. I've never heard that one before. Like, where'd you pick it up?" And she can't lie because once again they sent the least talented secret agent to do this job. And so he's more suspicious, and he's like, "I only ever heard one person say it, and said it exactly like that." And I do think Charlize actually tried to like mimic the exact cadence of how John said it too. Um, and he's like, "Oh, and he had a daughter who was exactly your age." So, and like maybe he had seen her when she was like a little kid or something, because he said something about the way she looks. So I do think they sort of, while it's certainly a little bit generous, I do think they wrote enough into that for him, because like I don't know, I've never heard someone say that expression before.
You know what, Matt? You made a compelling argument. I think it's within the suspension of disbelief we allow movies.
But when she does that and grabs her wrist, she knocks over a bottle, which is the signal for Charlie and the boys to come out. And while this is happening, it's a cool scene. Like they're intimidating him, and they're all meeting face to face for the first time since he thought they were dead. But I was just like, how is no one in this restaurant noticing this showdown that's happening in the middle of the restaurant?
Well, I was just say, dude, how did no one in the restaurant notice a group of four guys? Because Lyle got the night off because he was working remote, but four guys just three guys walking in the restaurant and just like standing behind the door, like peeking out.
Yeah, like waiting. And then even worse, when she knocks the bottle over, which first of all, where are the fucking waiters at this place? They didn't notice someone knock a bottle over. And then Charlie and them just like walk over and are just standing like, "Yeah, fuck you," in front of the dude. And then he's like yelling at them and shit. And everyone else in the restaurant is just enjoying their meal. And I guess, don't give a shit. Like, this isn't the New York City streets. This is a fancy restaurant. People definitely would be saying something. But we get a very satisfying moment of Charlie punching Steve right in the kisser.
Yeah, that also is after Steve tells Charlie when he confronts him, "Don't talk about wrong or right with me, man, because I just don't give a shit."
I was literally about, I mean, I don't know why you switching the order threw me off so much of right and wrong, but yeah, that actually is like one of my favorite villain lines, because instead of trying to make it some like needlessly complex or stupid argument that just wouldn't make any sense, he's literally like, "I don't give a fuck about right and wrong. I wanted the money, so I took it." And it's like, damn, okay.
Yeah, another thing I love in that scene before Charlie punches Steve, he basically just completely psychologically profiles him in front of him. And like he just tore into him in that
like no imagination.
Profile. Yeah. Yeah.
And then he's like, and then Steve is like, "Oh, you idiot, you lost the element of surprise." And then he punches him in the face, and he's like, surprised. And I was like, nice.
You just blew the element of surprise, and he just immediately punches him in the face.
So moving past, because I do want to get to the finale, since I think we're gonna have a lot to say about it. Obviously, it's the big moment in the movie. They start hinting. There's like a a brief emotional scene. If you're thinking of this as a cable movie, this was to keep the older ladies who were watching invested.
And this is when I would have taken a piss break watching this.
Yeah, between Charlie and Stella, and that are clearly just to add emotional weight. But they do eventually get married, and so at first I was like, "Oh, maybe this is just Charlize being weirdly sexual with people she shouldn't be," like in the beginning. But no, they do get married, so it's kind of strange that the one love thing they wanted to create was Stella and a guy who's very close to being her brother
and really good friends with her dad.
Yeah, like just feels weird to be like, "Damn, I can't believe my father figure and mentor died. I'm gonna fuck his daughter."
It's kind of like the classy version of "Step Bro, is that you?"
Oh no, Step Bro, I'm stuck in a safe.
And then, after this emotional moment, Charlie kind of huddles the crew together and he goes, we do it like the Italian Job.
Oh
Peter
yeah.
Griffin, you said the title.
Said the thing.
Said the thing. And you know, he kind of gets the down low scoop as well from Skinny Pete on what's going on. And Skinny
Mhm.
Pete delivers a banger line. He goes, "If there's one thing I know, it's to never mess with Mother Nature, mothers-in-law, or mother freaking Ukrainians."
That was
Uh,
so funny to me because it was like you guys really didn't want to try and get away with one fuck
they could have
in
done
this.
it too. They don't use a fuck in this
I
movie.
know, but like, cause something about that guy who looks like that using the word "freaking" instead of "fuck" is just it kind of ruined the badassness of the line and just sort of made it hilarious.
That's one thing, and this movie is not unique in this, but there's so many PG-13 movies where they just like don't deploy their allowance for swearing well. Like him saying "I don't give a shit," he could have said "I don't give a damn." You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
allotment of curse words sometimes feels off.
yeah. It definitely was. It was an interesting take as to where to use them. But moving on to when they're setting up the Italian Job 2.0,
Oh yeah.
they're installing the explosives
Oh,
underground
I
because
loved this scene.
they're gonna do a similar thing with the armored truck that Steve has moved his gold to now that he's wise to their act. Where they're gonna blow up the ground and have the truck fall into the subway station where they'll be waiting to load the gold onto Mini Coopers and drive away. Um, and they're and Most Def is left ear is like, oh, like just give me a second here. They're hanging from the ceiling installing explosives, and he's like,
Yeah.
what now? And he's like, yeah, like I'm about to attach the detonator, and if this touches the other thing, we're the last two people we're ever going to see. And Mark Wahlberg's like, oh, take all the time you need. And then it pauses. Do you want to do it, Blake?
I love you, man.
And then it pauses for a second, and Mark Wahlberg's like, I love you too. And then it just cuts. Like I thought, like with a wide angle of them just handing in there. I thought that was hilarious. This is also another point where I was like, the financials of this movie make very little sense to me. I did the math later on about how much money was actually there, and it did make it seem more reasonable. I think the inflation thing, I mean, we've really just gotten fucked in the ass as a generation with inflation because this was not that long ago. And the amount of money that they're discussing is like double today.
I'm not gonna go down a rabbit hole I could here, but I just want to say I'm not a fan of inflation, and I'll leave it at that.
Really, I thought you were a big fan, dude.
It is something that really grinds my gears.
Like, why don't we just fix the money problems by printing a ton more money?
I'm not getting drunk today. But anyways, the at this point uh, the real Napster comes in handy,
Yeah.
and he hacks into the traffic system, and the traffic guys are like, "What's going on?" And they're like, "Wait, we still have power." And the one guy goes, "I can't log in," and then one of the traffic guys goes, "It's not a crash." That really made me laugh. And then all of their screens where they're monitoring traffic just go black, and it just says, "You'll never shut down the real Napster," which was
Hell
so
yes.
fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, it was also weird because it's like, why would he say stop? Like shut down just to, I know it like I guess it's more computery sounding, but it doesn't really make any like sense for the context.
Well, they have 7 screens, so they needed a 7-word expression.
That's what I was wondering. Did like set design build the screens and then they were like, oh fuck, there's not enough words.
Well, I also think it's because they shut down the actual Napster site.
Oh well, yeah, that's true. Okay, I got you. That actually makes complete sense. During this, the Mini Coopers drive onto the Star sidewalk thing in Hollywood or whatever.
The Walk of
Like,
Fame.
yeah, through crowded people and then down the stairs into the subway.
Oh yeah.
Which this is one of the most fascinating things I've learned in a behind the scenes. First of all, that is real. So they actually did do that. Second of all, the actors actually did that in those cars, which is insane because if they didn't turn to the right at the bottom, they would have just went head on into a wall. And finally, the city wouldn't allow them to do that with internal combustion engines because they obviously didn't want to put small bombs underground for a movie. So as far as I know, the first electric Mini Cooper was invented for the Italian Job.
It was, dude. I actually researched this. So the first three ever electric Mini Coopers were made so that that underground tunnel scene could be shot legally, which
Yeah.
innovation that excites. This is the first movie we've covered since Thunderball where there was a new invention or used just for that movie with the jetpack that was actually used by the military used in Thunderball. So
And
pretty
this one's
dope
even
shit.
cooler because like someone on that set
Made
made
that.
that. Yeah, and also, again, you should watch the extras for this because it's fucking sick. But they have shots of them like doing it, and it literally just looks like the trunks of the cars are just filled with like 20 car batteries wired. Just like it literally looks like how a kid would imagine an electric car works.
That's crazy.
Which Go
Matt,
ahead.
do you ever remember, like, as a kid, how the stores would have like those like little like build your own electric circuit kits? You know what I'm
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about?
yeah.
This is, I feel like that's what it looked like under the interior.
Dude, this is the big boy version of that. Those guys were like, I have been waiting for this
Yeah,
moment.
dude. I mastered the electric circuit kit. Now it's time for the real thing.
So they do end up successfully blowing up the road to get the armored truck to fall, which again done practically. They didn't actually blow up the streets of Los Angeles. Although interestingly, they did shut down one of the busiest parts of LA
Yeah.
for a full week, which is pretty crazy. But they did explode a bunch of mortars around the truck to look like the explosions creating the holes, and then rig an underground thing with a lightweight model of that truck and a bunch of cement and shit to drop in front of all the actors, which just looks so dope. And then Left Ear pops off his super goggles. I don't know
Oh,
if you
yeah.
caught those, dude, but those were pretty slick.
They were pretty sick goggles, dude. And he did the sick explosion to get the truck down. I also want to just give a little context for the viewers. What's going on here is that Steve had three different trucks, and his plan is to transport his gold from LA to Mexico City, have armored trucks take it to a private plane, which will then be flown to Mexico City. He's in a helicopter monitoring this whole thing. And he has three trucks, so two decoys, but then the gang is able to figure out which truck really has the gold, and they manipulate the gridlock patterns of LA via Lyle to lure the truck into their target spot, where it is then exploded down into the metro where they're waiting for it. From there, in the metro, they open up the truck to find the safe, only to find out that Steve has switched the safe that they had previously scouted in his home with
Which
a.
I don't know why they didn't assume that that was going to happen. Like that seems so incredibly stupid to me that they know they're caught, he knows they're coming to steal it, and that they hired a safe cracker's daughter who's a safe cracker, and none of them were like, maybe he's gonna change his safe given that he, changed his entire security system also.
Yeah, that was a huge leap in logic, but to be fair, it was an Israeli made safe, which nobody could have prepared for.
That is true. Yeah. I mean, they also, I hadn't, this hasn't like occurred to me before because I feel like usually stuff like this is in like action movies that are sort of meant to just turn your brain off and not think about it all. Whereas this one I think is sort of meant to be a little more grounded. Bro, think of the events of this final heist. This would be like a National Guard level event.
This would
There's
be
an
the only thing covered on CNN for
there's
like 3
the
to 4
traffic
days.
system has been shut down and hacked, causing constant collisions and gridlock. Bombs are going off in central LA, creating holes in the street. And helicopters are flying between buildings for no reason whatsoever, while guns are fired in subways that cars are driving down.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that a lot of these action movies do very poorly. I think if you just drop an action movie name out of a hat and you say the finale out loud to a news anchor and be like, hey, how much screen time would this get? At worst, they're getting like a week where that is the only real headline on the TV.
Yeah. Yeah. They're like, oh, there's 27 million left, which means that Steve has spent 8 million on a large mansion in the most expensive state in America, a private army, including 3 armored trucks, a plane, a helicopter pilot, and multiple motorcycle guys who are willing to, blast firearms in public and risk being arrested, as well as everything in that mansion that he got. And I was like, how the fuck is eight? Like, maybe he spent like 8 million. Maybe you could do that, but I looked it up, and that would be 14 million today, which
I
does
can see
seem
that.
like enough. And based on that, Blake, why don't you give us your rapid fire two takes on how you feel about 8 million now needing to be 14 to reach your same goals here?
Again, this is not a political podcast, but I just want to say if I could time travel, I would time travel back in time to the day after the Great Depression started. I would have dropped in $500 of my current money into the S&P, and I would just sit back and enjoy the money flowing in. And I will say, dude, I think what really happened with Steve, this isn't really inflation related, but I think what happened with Steve is he got, like that giant private army, that crazy car, his helicopter, all that stuff, the mansion for about 500,000. And then the bulk of the money, about 7.5 million, went to his monster TV.
Yeah, dude, it was clearly worth every penny. I mean, that thing was almost 70 inches wide diagonally, dude.
Oh, shit, dude.
You can't even, I don't even know if they make TVs that big.
I think you could maybe get up to 540p on that TV.
Oh, shit.
Oh,
dude.
shit.
He's going to be pissed when the next gen 720p TVs come out and his is obsolete.
When the big inch plasma comes out in 2005, Steve is fucked. But the one thing I also love in this movie is Seth Green is sitting in his control panel in a stroller. It looks like he's sitting in the stroller by baggage claim. And then in the middle of the airport, he just screams, yeah! And people are like, look at him like, what the fuck? And he's like, the Holy Spirit just moves me.
That's actually a pretty good cover because no one's going to want to talk to him after that. It's like kind of genius, actually. I also love, so we have the sequence of the three Mini Coopers battling the motorcyclist in the tunnel and like going up the walls and shit while they're doing it and like weaving up them. I thought that was sick. Again, all done like very practically, which really does add to how that stuff comes off.
Was really sick. We also, I don't want to gloss over this because this is like the emotional payoff of the movie. When Stella is struggling to open up the safe and she realizes she's going to have to do it by feel. And she's like, I just can't do this. And then Charlie's like, you got this. And she is able to do what her dad did and just do it off feel and open up the safe. And she does see the safe contents this time. And then the motorcycle chase through the waterways ensues, which
because they pay off
really
the
dope.
She never looks inside bit where they're like, oh, do you want to see? And she's like, absolutely. And turns around. I was like, that's a good payoff. I mean, again, like the setups and payoffs in this movie are not like grand in scale, but they do, I feel like, hit because they're just simple and they hit and they pay off something from earlier in the movie.
It sounds like the bare minimum, but it is shocking how many movies, including movies we cover, fail to either properly set things up, properly pay things off, or overdo the payoff of things where it just becomes annoying. So hats off to the Italian Job for actually nailing pretty much everything it sets up. I also love, as the gang drives through the waterways, the slow-mo shot of them leaping out of the tunnel in their Mini Coopers. Very dope.
So sick.
At this point, most of the gang kind of diverts off to Union Station, but Steve is in hot pursuit of Charlie's Mini Cooper in his helicopter, and the helicopter blade actually chops into the car, which damages the helicopter and forces Steve to make an emergency landing.
Well, so before we get to the chopper landing, dude, that was the scene that when I texted you, I was like, they did everything practically, even the parts that you're like, there's no way that was fully legit. I thought like maybe they just CGI'd the bridge above the chopper or whatever, but no, like Charlie goes under a bridge and then the helicopter flies under the bridge and plays chicken with Charlie's car with like 3 feet of clearance in both directions. Just fucking crazy thing to do. In the behind the scenes featurette about it, I think they said that had never been done before, which
doesn't surprise me.
Probably for the best that people aren't doing that. That's like some shit you would do in like GTA as like a trick, to be like, oh, this is sick. Like that's not a real thing. Also, kind of leans into Mission Impossible 1 ends with a helicopter flying down a subway tunnel. Here we have them coming out of a subway tunnel and then the helicopter flying under a bridge, except in this, they actually did it. Um, but it's interesting. You mentioned that he has to make an emergency landing. We see Steve get out and jack a different car to chase Charlie, but we
Yeah.
don't see the helicopter pilot get out. He just left that guy in the lurch. What do you think happened, Blake? What do you think happened to that helicopter pilot?
I think the helicopter pilot probably got fed up and just walked home. He was like, yeah, I've had enough with this shit. Also, it is very funny. Steve carjacks a Ford Bronco to follow Charlie, which
Yeah.
probably not intentional. Maybe it was. That is the same car that OJ used when he was getting chased by police.
Yeah, I think it was just sort of like looked like a workman kind of vehicle with like the back hatch on it and whatnot. I think if they made it white, then it definitely would have been like a reference. Or dude, imagine how funny it would be if in that scene of Handsome Rob doing the national car chase, he's in a white Ford Bronco.
Oh, I was just saying, dude, imagine how funny it would be if all the cops are chasing him and then they all just drive away and you see OJ drive by and like a news headline come out.
Oh
like,
yeah, that would be good too.
Hot pursuit of OJ.
Well, do you want to wrap up the plot here for us?
Sure. So there ultimately is a final confrontation at the Union Station, and in the Union Station, the Mini Coopers are all loaded onto a train car that Wrench has locked up. And Steve does a pathetic bribe attempt on Wrench where he's like, hey, I'll give you a 5K for me to open it. And he knows that like the heroes are wise of this. So
Yeah.
Wrench agrees to it. And he's like, well, I'm going to give you $2,500 now, but the job needs to be done first. It's like, Steve.
No, he's like, you have to help me unload to get the other half. It's like,
you have to do manual labor. Well, that's
like that wasn't the deal.
And then Charlie and the others are waiting for him, and Steve pulls a gun on the crew, and then Moshkov, who's the Ukrainian guy, come up to him, and they're like, we know what you did to Yevon. We're going to take you back to my workplace. And I love the line they say, because I want to say the exact line. He goes, I'll take you to my workplace. I think you'll be very interested in some of the machinery I use. And I also love when he pulls the gun on him, he's like, I got the upper hand. Stella just punches him, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah, she finally gets to sock him right in the kisser. Oh,
yeah. And so the Ukrainians leave with Steve, presumably to torture him with some funny devices. And the heroes kind of just walk away with the gold, which is when I wrote down, like, no police followed them. No one was like, hey, these guys who are driving these weird-looking Mini Coopers that are making noises that Mini Coopers should not be able to.
We've already established that these officers were on the day off. I mean, the movie does try and explain it away by saying that the cops are all stuck in traffic, which, like, what about helicopters or motorcycles or, people who don't live in the middle of this? Like, it was, at least, like many other nitpicks we've had in this movie, they do at the very least, like, nod towards there being a solution. It's usually a dumb solution, but I'll give them credit for at least doing one. And then just a speed run the "Where Are They Now" section, which I thought was pretty. Yeah, so Rob gets his Aston Martin Vanquish.
He does.
I believe about a $400,000 car today, at least in terms of what it was priced at then. And he seduces an ugly cop, which I thought was a strange choice.
What do you mean ugly?
I did not think she was attractive, dude.
Matt.
She looked like a female cop.
I disagree. She wasn't attractive until she took off her helmet, and I was like, very nice. And so also here, Left Ear finally gets his house, and he has his cool shoe collection, which was an odd interest they established for him that isn't really talked about the rest of the movie. And then my favorite part of it is Lyle gets his giant speaker, and he tells a woman to face toward the speaker, and he blows off her clothes with the speaker. And funny fact about the girl he does that to. So that girl is his girlfriend in the movie, Kelly Brock. She was Jason Statham's real life girlfriend at the time of film, which I thought was funny. And then, of course, Charlie and Stella end up together.
Wait, dude, you missed it. Seth Green finally got on the cover of Wired magazine, bro.
Fuck, dude, how could I gloss over?
I know. How could you? That's the best part of the movie.
Seth Green gets famous for his traffic light scheme. Not sure why he's arrested, and he ends up on the cover of Wired magazine, vindicated at last.
Yeah, dude. And then Charlie marries his sister.
Well, I was a little disappointed. We didn't get any shots of Steve getting tortured by Ukrainians. Odd directorial choice, but good payoff for the end of the movie, and probably the most satisfying way to wrap up the most cable movie of all time is doing a Where Are They Now? So no complaints there.
I mean, I really think that they knew what they were making and they made it well, which is why I think, this is sort of a top tier type of movie. It's not the highest in like any of the quality areas, but in terms of overall enjoyment and like production, even with the practical effects, just very fun. Let's whip into some segments here.
I got one thing quickly behind the scenes. So Edward Norton, most of the cast was very excited about the movie. Mark Wahlberg, Seth Green, Charlize Theron, all loved the script. Edward Norton was not. He took the role of Steve Frizzelli under duress because Paramount had him on a 3-picture deal, and he hadn't made a movie with them since his debut or his breakout role, which I believe was Primal Fear in '96. He was furious he had to make the movie and said that his real fans should give this a miss. And then the movie did much better than producers expected, so they gave out gifts. And he actually returned their gift to them. I don't know what the gift was. And he said, give it to someone you actually like, or someone who actually likes you.
Damn, dude. Sounds fair. It sounds like he was like maybe being a little bit of a dick about it, but they were essentially forcing him to work.
They forced him to make the movie. Oh no, my life is so hard. I get millions to star in a sick heist movie.
I have to go to Italy and film a movie with famous people.
I have to film a movie where the majority of it is shot on location in the town I already live in. My life is so hard.
I have to film 4 scenes where I'm just talking for 2 minutes at a clip.
Also, the sequel, The Brazilian Job, was in development but canceled. And to my knowledge, there is no sequel that would have went with my chosen name, which would have been The Rim Job. Anyway, let's get into some segments.
Yep. On that note, so for Would You Chill with the Lead, I just want to go person by person for the main crew and get a really quick answer from each of us. So, Charlie, would you chill with Charlie?
Yes, he's 3 in my rankings. He's a chill dude, natural leader, not a real standout.
All right, I agree. Steve?
No, he's 6th place last in my rankings. He has 0 original ideas. He would love ChatGPT, and he is an absolute yes man. Can't have him in the crew.
Yeah, I fucking hate Steve. All right, left ear.
Yup, we could sneak together on the gun range after dark and get into some shenanigans.
The gun range after dark? I'm not really sure where you're getting that one from, but I also felt that left ear is top tier. Mos Def is just a really cool guy, and second. I love. Anyone in a movie that's whole thing is just blowing shit up is always a great time. I mean, think of Danny McBride in Tropic Thunder.
Sick.
Always a good one. How about Handsome Rob?
Handsome Rob is number 1 in my rankings. I think the Dos Equis commercials, he is the most interested man in the world. That guy wishes he was handsome.
He's
Rob.
Dos Equis.
He's the guy that Dos Equis guy wishes he was.
I actually put maybe because he seems like a really cool dude and I'd love to hang out with him. But if we were anywhere in public, the chances of him getting arrested for sexual harassment seem exceedingly high.
Handsome Rob?
Yeah, dude. He's just like walking up to women and constantly hitting on them openly. This seems like it could get out of hand. Well, it works in the movie. I'm saying in real life, I'd be a little concerned, dude.
I mean, dude, if you're able to go up to a cable worker in the middle of her shift and convince her to drop everything and bang
and go home with you,
that's riz that's gonna work anywhere.
He's top tier. Yeah. Okay. Well, how about tier. Stella?
Stella, I have at 4. She is a yes. I love bad bitches who practice safe cracking without a shirt on.
I couldn't have put it better myself. How about Lyle, dude?
Okay, so I'm going to break the brief rule with this one. So Lyle, no. I'm not chilling with him. He's 5th. He is pushing 30. He's still obsessed with what is essentially a glorified torrent website that he invented in college. He also, I could not trust him with hacking. As cool as some of his ideas are, like I thought about, he could hack like a bar or a restaurant, give me free drinks or food. He could fuck up with my enemies with traffic. But he's gonna try to publicize it. He's obsessed with being on Wired magazine. He's gonna post a blog of him
enemies with traffic.
Yeah, dude.
What a devious scheme,
Oh,
dude.
yeah, dude.
You're like, I'm going to make their commute an extra 10 minutes long.
No, dude, he's going to fuck them and they can't show up to work and they're going to get fired.
were your enemies just corporate drones?
Maybe. No, I have enemies outside.
All right, well, let's get to...
But,
oh, okay. Yeah,
Lyle, also, if you're so good at hacking and coding, why don't you just invent a better website, dude?
Yeah, or like literally at like work for the NSA.
I mean, dude,
or private security companies. Like he could.
Sean Parker is the guy who founded Napster. He really wants to get back at Sean Parker, who was an early investor in Facebook. Just go to Facebook, code mog him, steal his job, and make billions working with Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, I mean, I actually hadn't thought about it, but it's kind of hilarious. He could almost 100%, without any legal risk, make 40 times more money a year as just a worker in a technology company with his skills than as a thief.
Well, he's coming around at the perfect time. This movie comes out a year before Facebook drops. Twitter is 5 years away. I'm sure he could have coded something like that. Instagram, similar time frame. Not even to get into like all the innovations that the more established like Microsoft, Apple, Alphabet make at this time. He could have joined NVIDIA on the ground floor. Like there are so many different tech legal routes he could have got into where he'd make way more money in the crew. Whereas you compare him to someone like Left Ear, there's not a company that's going to hire you and you're going to make millions of dollars making like makeshift cherry bombs. Like,
yeah, it makes sense. Mining companies maybe, and demolition companies, but not really. He's not making those big bucks.
No.
All right. Well, how about this? Like many films we've covered, Foxy's Lady is more or less a default selection because.
No, Becky from the cable company had a compelling.
Well, I wrote
case.
Becky and the nice lady that was training Skinny Pete in his golf skills.
So they were contenders, but yeah, it was obviously Stella. I mean, everything she does and Charlize Theron does in this movie, I don't know if it was a director's note or just how she interpreted the character, but everything she does is weirdly seductive, but it's kind of hot. Like, she's the only time where she like punches a guy in the face and it was like, why was that kind of sexy? So yeah,
I feel like that's the only time I wished I was Steve.
But you know, she is supposed to be a hot love interest who is spunky, and she is a hot love interest who's spunky. So
rewatching this really made it so much more depressing what her face looks like now. I mean, if you had told me when I saw this movie as a kid, if you had told me that when I was in my 20s, she would be like a horrific plastic surgery monster woman, I would have been like, there's no fucking way. Like, that's Charlize Theron. What are you talking about?
All I got to say, my girl Cameron Diaz still looks as good as ever. Winners stay winning, baby.
Well, you know, Cameron, as much as she's not, you know, necessarily my favorite, she is a very big advocate of not getting plastic surgery. So big credit there. She's pulled it off very well. She's aged very well. How about let's get into some top 3 side characters here, Blake.
So number 3, I got the aspiring actor at the traffic stop. The way he delivered turn in your gun and badge was fucking awesome, dude. I would have immediately cast him for that role.
Yep, he was so
like
committed.
A one-line part on Law and Order, but he nailed it and he got the part.
I also have him as number 3. I really wanted to put him as number 1, but unfortunately, if he had just one more scene, I would have given it to him, but I couldn't give it to him for just like 2 minutes of the movie. So he is also my number 3. My number 2, however, is pawn shop guy Yevon. He's a deep conspiracy theorist who, in every scene he was in, did not stop talking about all sorts of conspiracies from, ranging all the way back to ancient times. It was really, he had just a wide breadth of knowledge that had absolutely nothing to do with his business. and also, he loved to talk, and it eventually got him killed. But he seemed like a cool guy, to get beers with and see what sort of crackpot theories he's got cooking.
Dude, I would love to get hammered with that guy and talk about conspiracy theories from ancient Mesopotamia, dude.
Yes, dude, I want to hear his thoughts on what happened to Hammurabi.
I want to hear about the dark underbelly of the Fertile Crescent, dude.
I'm not gonna lie though, I think if this character was made today and you were hanging out with him, unfortunately, I think he'd be more of the let's just say space lasers type of conspiracy theorist, which doesn't. It's not nearly as fun. He was in the movie. He's more of just a wacky type conspiracy theorist.
Nothing has been ruined more in the last 10 years than conspiracy theorists, dude. They used to be, funny guys, and now we're all parroting the same theories we heard on the internet. They all seem to back one political candidate. That's really conspiracy thinking of you, to all coalesce over a guy who's in power and is able to bend the government to his will. That's really true conspiracy theorist stuff.
Yeah, they're the true skeptics because, while they theorized that the government was secretly a pedophile ring, after electing one, they're like, actually, I don't think there's anything to that.
But hey, that's just a theory. A
film theory.
My number
Who's
two,
your number two?
Is Wrench, who is, the gang's mechanic. I thought the way he souped up their cars was really cool. I also love how before he turned in Steve to the gang, he just accepted a cool $2,500 from him for opening a door. Pretty sick stuff.
He also just joins the crew on a dime. Like they're like, we need another guy, and he's like, yeah, I got it. I'll do it.
I'm in.
Yeah.
You son of a
bitch, I'm in.
And then Matt, who you got as your number one?
I mean, it's got to be Skinny Pete, dude.
That's my number one, too.
Okay, good. I'm glad we're on the same page with this because I would have been very upset if he did not get the thumbnail. I think Skinny Pete is just an absolute legend. The Ukrainians show up with axes and he immediately folds. He's got survival instincts, dude. Besides eating 60 burgers a day, he's got good survival instincts. He's got a pretty lady with him, and he's constantly telling his baby to go relax.
Oh yeah, dude. I also love, and this is a great segue. I agree with all the points you made with Skinny Pete. I loved which is my most memeable moment, he's on the golf course and his girl's like, "You got it, babe," and he just slamming that putter. He's slamming that putter like it's a driver over the putting green, dude.
Every single hit
out there,
and it's
dude.
like it's the same amount of force every time too. He's like, I don't give a fuck if I'm hitting it.
I got my verbal meme for that one. My boss, hey, do you want to go out to golf with us? We need a fourth. Me, I'm not so bad at golf. Also me. What do you got as your most memeable moment?
Oh, okay. We'll go back to off-screen MVP. My most memeable moment, I think, there's definitely a lot of good choices now that we've covered the movie, but I'm gonna have to say Lyle finally making the cover of Wired magazine. Again, I'm not the best at the off-the-dome verbal memes, but there's definitely a format there to be had of him bragging about being on the cover of Wired magazine.
When I show my friends in 4th grade that I jailbroke my iPhone,
that's
unlimited gems in Clash of Clans. I'm on the cover of Wired magazine.
How about your off-screen MVP for this one?
Sure. So this one I went a little outside the box. I have John Carpenter. He was the transportation coordinator for the movie. He is the one who built the world's first 3 custom electric Mini Coopers, so they could shoot the underground tunnel scene. He also designed Mini Coopers with 2 steering wheels. So there was one for the stuntman to actually drive the car and one for the actor to look like they were driving the car while they were acting in the scene, which is, I think, a pretty genius invention.
Hey, that's pretty sick. You made a driving school car.
Yeah.
For Mini Coopers. Also has the same name as the guy who directed and wrote The Thing and Halloween. So that's pretty sick. Very famous director, John Carpenter.
Oh, yeah.
I put either the stunt coordinator, don't know his name, or, from the behind-the-scenes extras, Steve Kelso, who was the instructor at driving school, who was very impressed that Charlize was able to drive a car competently. Not as impressed as Jason Statham, but he was also impressed.
Oh, man. very early 2000s coded behind the
Oh yeah.
scenes.
What do you
Uh,
think the best weapon or best way to get hammered was in this one?
so the best way to get hammered in this one was, we've already touched on it, but the real Napster's malware that hacks the traffic lights
Oh,
of LA. If
that's a
I could
good
harness
choice.
that thing, dude, I would have every single city in America groveling at my knees for
Bro,
mercy.
I think you mean his badass algorithm. Okay.
His kick-ass algorithm, dude.
Exactly, dude. That's what it is. That was a good choice. I also gave a nice fun answer for this one. I said the Mini Cooper.
Yeah.
They really got the most out of that bad boy. He was able to defeat multiple motorcyclists as well as a helicopter. So, I mean, what other car could you say has defeated a helicopter in hand to hand combat?
Yeah, a quick honorable mention would be Mark Wahlberg's lifts in this movie. He's wearing lifts for most of the movie so that he can appear taller, and they work flawlessly. And as somebody who is maybe a couple inches below 6'8", I have sometimes fantasized about putting lifts in my feet and being 6 foot for a day.
Yeah, yeah. I too, if I put lifts in and was suddenly 7 foot 12,
Fuck you,
I
Matt.
I would be a fan of that. All right, so for best quote, this is another one that I think could go back and forth. But let's hear what you got, Blake.
So, first, I want to say my honorable mention: turn in your badge and your weapon. But I this quote both works in terms of a screenwriting device because it shows kind of the morality of the villain, and it also made me laugh when he said it. But when Steve says, "Don't talk about right or wrong with me, man, because I just don't give a shit," I loved that line.
That was one of my three. That would have been one of my honorable mentions. So you're saying that's the best quote.
That's my number one.
So okay, so that would have been my number one, but I could switch it out as an honorable mention.
You could go
My
the same
new
quote.
now,
You just tell me
no,
an
no,
honorable
no,
mention.
no, not impossible.
Okay.
Now my favorite quote is going to be because it was really a tie between the three anyway. So I'll give the award to um, Left Ear yelling, "I had a bad experience. Damn it, I'm deaf." I thought that was great. And then the other one, which is also Left Ear, probably my favorite character in the movie, even though he's sort of underutilized, was "We're in Italy, speak English."
So, Matt, would you say this movie is too long, too short, or just right?
I think it's perfect. I think there's like pretty much nothing in this movie that you need to. I mean, I wasn't particularly invested in the emotional scenes at the like two in the movie, but I
Yeah.
don't think you need to cut them out. Like I don't, they didn't like stay too long or anything. I thought they were pretty brief.
Well, I might not agree with that choice in every movie. I understand why they have to have emotional scenes. This movie really did not need them, but I agree. I thought they were fine. I have the same note here. I thought it was just right. This movie knows exactly what it is. It does exactly what it promises to do, and it doesn't overstay its welcome.
All right, so final movie rating. I have a feeling we're going to be pretty similar on this one.
I think this is
Um,
the second movie where we have the same rating.
Sick. Yeah, I mean, just we've really already covered all the reasons we'll give our ratings. I don't think anybody's going to be surprised by them. Just like try and make this brief, but like practical effects really cool. It's a movie you can start in the middle and still have a great time. Cast is stacked. Lots of great one-liners, lots of setups and payoffs, lots of fun camera work besides the dialogue scenes. Lots of great score and soundtrack. Just
Great little
overall,
character moments throughout the movie.
yeah, I mean, there's just so many little things that make this one just an absolute banger. So I gave this one an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I also gave it an 8 out of 10. Just to quickly get into the negatives of the movie to reverse roles a little bit, it does play into almost every single cliche of a heist movie. And there are some pretty big leaps in logic the movie asks you to take. It does try to kind of cover its tracks with them, but even its explanations can be rather far-fetched. And then
Yeah.
I'll just wrap my review by saying I don't know if this is a negative or a positive, but literally nothing about Lyle aged well.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely is the least, or I guess the most well-rounded in terms of aging just horrendously, which is not
Yeah,
an award I'm sure he wanted to get, but
this is a fun watch. It's probably the perfect cable movie. We could probably have started this movie at literally any point in the movie and had a good time watching it. I think it is a movie that also maximizes Mark Wahlberg. It has him do a little bit outside his comfort zone, but not so much where you're actually asking him to carry a movie, because we all know
Yeah.
how badly that goes. And I mean, a lot of movies have stacked casts and absolutely fumble them, but Wahlberg, Norton, Charlize, Seth Green, Mos Def, and even Donald Sutherland. I think maybe Mos Def is a little underused, but I also think he's by far the worst actor of the six. Much
Probably.
better
I mean, that's.
musician than actor.
I think they leaned into his strengths by just having him
I
basically
agree.
play himself.
Yeah. All six of them have great moments, and I think they're well used. And yeah, just a fun watch overall. 8 out of 10.
All right,
So
hell yeah.
as always, that's Matt Grayson. I'm Blake Hammer. Follow us on all platforms at the Smash Cut Podcast, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. This movie, it had an absolutely legendary cast. And next week, we're going to get into another movie that is quite legendary. In fact, it is a legend. The Legend of Bagger Vance is next week.
All
That's
right.
a review. Stay smashed.